Today is about installing Kimai, the open source time tracking tool, on a Windows server. We'll do so starting from scratch, meaning that we will install the Apache Web Server, make PHP work with it, install the MySQL or MariaDB database with it, as well as the Composer, which we will need later in order to install Kimai. So the first step is to do a bit of downloading. So if I open up the web browser in order to already be there where we want to download. So first thing is the Apache Web Server. We go on the Apache Launch website and start the download from there. The next thing is the PHP. PHP for Windows has two versions. One is the non-thread safe and the other one is the thread safe version. The one that we are going to use is the thread safe version of it. Next thing is Composer. And we download the Composer setup exe, and next thing up there will be the MariaDB, which you can download here. So now that the downloading is done, we're going over to installing our components. For Apache and PHP, there is not a lot of installation to be done. The first thing that we're going to start is extracting the zip files. So starting this one and starting the other one as well. So the way that I would like to organize it is to create myself a folder on hard drive C, a folder called apps, where I put all the components that we need in there. So I'm doing that, going to the C drive, creating myself this new folder that I've just mentioned, and then I will just move the files that I have extracted into it. So let's see. This is my PHP. Whoop. Again. So PHP has moved over, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the Apache Web Server. Oh, I selected the wrong one. What I meant to do is using the extracted one. Second try. There we go. So now I'm going to rename this into PHP, and I could leave that like this, but just for my personal preferences, I would like to rename it like that. In fact, this is pretty much already what we need in order to get a web server with PHP up and running. In order to make that happen, we go to the PHP ini file. And let me just enable the file extensions so that we're clear on what we are looking at. So the PHP ini file, you see there's already two ones that come shipped with PHP. I'm going to rename the production into just ini. There we go. Now we open up that file with Notepad and we'll make some first slight changes to it. And we're looking for the extension directory. So, yeah, well, I want to enable this line, and I could leave the extension, here like it is, because it is a relative path, but for sake of clarity, I do in fact prefer changing it to that. So if you want to double check, you just go into your PHP folder and you will see there is the extension directory right there. We'll come back to the PHP ini file again later. First thing we would like to do as well is make Apache use PHP. In order to do so, we switch over into the Apache Web Server directory, go to the configuration path, and then use the http conf file to make some changes to it. So what we're going to need to do in order to make Apache use PHP is go to the very end of the file and just insert those lines. And this is what you see. There is a path to apps PHP, PHP for DLL, and you will see that is exactly where the file is located in the directory. We tell them to add a handler, and this is where the PHP ini file is. So that is already a good setting. The other thing that we want to do is go up there again and look for the rewrite module. We want to activate this one in here by just removing the comment indicator. The other thing what we want to do is change the directory index setting. Directory index. What it currently will say is serving index.html as the index file. We want to add index.php to that as well. So that is all the changes for now, saving this file. And if we've done that correctly, we can start the Apache Web Server, and I will use PHP. In order to be able to test that, we set up a small test file for ourselves. Let's go one folder up in the Apache Web Server and go to htdocs, which is all the files that will be served from the web server. Let's create ourselves a new file in here. And paste this information. This is a short PHP information that will display showing that PHP is running correctly. So that should be then renamed into, if we want to change the directory index, we might do this as well. That's even better. So now let's start Apache and see if we've got ourselves a running web server. In order to do so, we need the command line. Let's start the command line as an administrator, because we will need to install Apache as a service. In order to do so, we navigate to the Apache folder. And there in the bin directory. And in the bin directory, we just issue a simple command, which is trying to start the Apache Web Server came up with an error messages, which indicates that we have forgotten to set up the directory root. Let's go do that. So again, we go into the Apache Web Server configuration file. And find ourselves the root directives. So there it is. And as we know, it is C apps. Let's do it that way. Apache Web Server. There we go. This is the root directory of the Apache server, and we should see down there somewhere that there will be a setting which says this root directory htdocs is where the documents are served. Repeating the install command now gives us a success. Let's go over to a web browser and start localhost and see what happens. Okay, so we have installed the Apache Web Server, but we did not start it. You can do that from the command line here as well, using the same command and replacing install by start. Or if you like the Windows UI, you go into the services, see the Apache 2.4 and click on start here. Now that the service is running, we try another one on localhost. And there we go. Localhost loads our index file from PHP, and if we want to, we can as well see that the HTML file is loading as well. Or not. There is a typo. That should be a dot. It works. Great. So now we have an Apache Web Server with PHP running. So then let's continue with installing the database. In our downloads directory, we will find the MariaDB installer. just click on that and follow the screen. In here is a setting which I personally like. You can leave it as it is, but I would like to change the destination of my installation of MariaDB into my apps folder where I have all my apps installed. So this is why I'm changing it to apps MariaDB. And we'll see that that goes for the data as well, but maybe I want to do it a little bit differently. Let's say I want to do it like that. Yeah, that's a bit crazy, but it goes well with my personal preferences. So I have two folders, one is for the app and one is for the data. And now that goes in here. That's great. Great. Third-party tool, you don't actually need that in order to be driving that, but this will come in quite handy at a later point if you want to access your MariaDB. So my new root password. Okay, using a password generator in order to obtain that one. So my new password goes in here. Same time, I want to make sure that I have all those credentials to save later into my password manager. So I just, for now, put it into this file. So now if we want to verify if that installation actually went through, we can go over and test that. Well, I should have finished the installation, obviously. Okay, so this will be installed. There we go. Now we should see an additional directory being in here. There we are. Yep, that is exactly how I wanted it to look. And we're going into the bin directory. So in the bin directory, this is where we can start a command to connect to MariaDB on the command line. So we're switching into the bin directory in order to execute our MySQL or MySQL connection command. The password is still in the clipboard, so I do a right mouse click and I have a connection to MariaDB. Okay, let's do a quick show databases in order to see if the connection is actually successful. I forgot the last line. Okay, there's our databases. Now we are going to create the Kimai database. And we're just going to drop a couple of lines in there. So this will create the Kimai database and create a user called Kimai DBO and grant the privileges that it needs for the database. And I will just grab myself a new password, which then goes into those lines of code. Let's see that we make that. Wow. There we go. Control C and right mouse click. Okay, now we have created ourselves a database. We have created a database owner user for it, and we're going to use this information later, which will go into the Kimai configuration file. So the next step then is to move a step forward in going towards the installation of Kimai itself. Let's go and check quickly what the Kimai installation says. It does need PHP, it does need MariaDB, and it does need a web server. So that's what we already have in place. For the PHP settings, it requires a certain amount or a certain set of extensions to be activated. So let's go and do that. In order to do that, we need our PHP ini file. So we are navigating into our PHP folder, use the ini file there. So let's see. This is our file. And we've added that previously when we put in the extension folder. Oh, this is not correct. There is something missing. Apps, C apps PHP extensions. Now that is correct. If you want to be like super sure, you can as well go into the folder and just do a Control-C, like this way. There's no typos and nothing saving that. Okay, good. So extensions, we are going to the extensions and activate, typing extension. There we go. So let's put this green like that. Okay, good. And we just go and activate all those that we see up there. We won't find JSON and the tokenizer because that is already included in PHP and does not need to be activated by extensions. So let's see, MB string, removing the comment character, GD, PDO is PDO MySQL in our case. The tokenizer, as I said, is already included. The zip is down there. Oh, it's already. And the XML, yeah, the XML, it's not there. So I guess it is included already in PHP. We will see. The other thing is that we might need to come back to PHP ini and revisit some of the settings in here in the next step when we're going to use the composer, which reminds me of another critical thing which we already know will happen. During the installation process with Composer, with a default memory limit of 128, we will run into a memory issue in terms of having too low memory in order to complete the installation. So I'm increasing this from 128 to 256. And then we might have another round of PHP ini editing in case of the Composer setup tool needs it. So speaking of the Composer, this is the next thing that we need to do. So we have ourselves a web server, we have PHP enabled and running in it, we have the extensions that are required, we have the MariaDB database. So next thing is going for the Composer. Well, and before we actually do that, let's have a quick restart of the Apache Web Server in order for those PHP ini settings that we have just made to take effect. We can do as well a little quick check on our PHP info file so that we can verify. See, MB string GD. Yeah, that's all there. So good. Let's go to the Composer. It's still sitting in our downloads directory. Let's go and start the installation. Use the developer mode. That doesn't do anything fancy other than allowing us to create a folder into which we want to install Composer. Next thing we need to do is specify where PHP is located. That is this one in here. Yeah, We might need to start the computer. I think we don't. But one thing that for sure is correct is we need to close our current command window, because this one is not aware of the changes that we have made now with the recent installation. So let's see what the Kimai installation wants next. The Kimai installation itself is not something very complex. It's outlined here in a couple of lines. One thing that I want to point on to is you can use git clone in order to get the Kimai repository. What I experienced doing that the first time on Windows was using git clone. Everything worked fine to the point when Kimai run for the first time. What I experienced then is that all the CSS, and JavaScript files would not load due to the integrity hash mismatch. So what probably has happened is the way that Linux and Windows treat the end of the lines or the end of the files is different. Well, long story short, you can use, if you're familiar with Git, you can try using Git attributes in order to make that not being a problem later. But for the installation on Windows, you actually don't need Git. So you just go to the Kimai GitHub site and download the zip file. And remember, if you install the Kimai and you have used git clone and you run later into the problem of the CSS and JavaScript files not being loaded, remember it's the integrity checker, and that is due to the hashes being different on Linux and Windows if downloaded via Git without dealing with the Git attributes. So where is the zip file download? There it is in code, download zip. Okay, the file is downloaded, and we will extract it right into the downloads folder and then move it over. Oh well, I can do it. Why not just do it directly in here? Oh. Okay, that's not quite the way I wanted it. So I wanted this one. Whoop. I wanted this. Okay, I wanted this to be here. Okay, so now I have my C apps folder with all the components in there. We have the Apache Web Server, we have the Composer, we have Kimai, we have the MariaDB, we have the PHP. Going back to the installation guidelines, this is now what we will be doing. Let's do a quick check if the Composer is actually, yeah, okay, good. So Composer install I could just copy and paste it, couldn't I? Maybe I should. Okay, the error message that we're getting back from Composer is that we once again need to go into the PHP ini file and enable two extensions, one being XSL and the other one being file info. File info, there we go, XSL. L, saving this one, going back here, second try. Open SSL, saving, third try. Oh, good. While that is going on, let's do a restart of the Apache server once again, so that the web server incorporates those PHP ini settings as well. Yay! A lot of green and okay. So, nice. Let's see, what's next? Configure the environment file. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a copy of what we have here. Control C, move to our notes file, put that in there, and the user is called Kimai DBO. And our password is here. And our MariaDB version that feels sorry, that feels a bit really. Why did I go there? Well, if you do it, you might as well take the newest version. For whatever reason, I got there. Okay. Good. If that is what it is, that is what it is. 10, 11, 7. 10, 11, 7. Okay, we copy that, Control C, move over into the Kimai folder, and look for the environment file. Okay, so open up this file. Oh, Notepad. Find the section where the database goes, which is right there on top. Oh well, can as well delete it. Okay, so that is in there. Let's go back to the installation instructions. And I'll go back to the installation. No. Let's try that way. Oh, interesting. Well, the database, yeah, the database is not called database. Let's check the environment file. The database is not called database, it's called Kimai. Save. Okay. Let's see where Ah no, oh, sorry. Sorry guys, I changed it up there in the, sorry for that. Yikes. Okay, now more of green, that's good. Yay, green and okay. Fantastic, that looks good. Okay, then let's go back to our install instructions and see. Yeah, that's okay. File permissions, no problem. The user, yes, we do need a user. Come on. Okay, so I've changed the username to being admin. Not sure if Kimai requires it to be an email address. Enter the password. Let's see what we have in here. That goes down there and into here. Really? The copy seemed to not have worked. Control C. Right mouse click. It needs to be an email address. Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, let's go back to our install instructions. Configure the document root to be something else. Yep. Okay, so this needs some adjustment into our Apache web server. So what we're gonna do is go to the Apache web server, to the configuration, and we'll have another configuration file that we will create in here. This will be for Kimai. And we have an empty configuration file. What we do here is the web server how to. Oh, this is Nginx. Apache. Okay, allow all override. That is in there. Great. So we can basically just copy and paste this. Come on. Okay, that's good. I'm removing the server name in here. In your environment, you set the server name to whatever you have. So maybe let's do it that way. Okay, the document root in here will be the public folder of my Kimai installation. So I go to Kimai and there's a public folder. I use a Control C and I put that into here. In Apache, the direction of the slashes is into the other, not like in Windows. I think it should be something like that. Okay, overall, there's no Apache 2.2, so I might remove that as well. It's 2.4, enable this one. Okay. Get the log files, put that into here. Which way, I guess. Okay, that should, in theory, be good. Now that we have done that, we need to go to our conf file, this one, and somewhere down there, say include. So we have created a virtual host entry for Apache, for Kimai in Apache, and in the main conf file we have said this should be included. Now if we do a restart of the Apache, this will hopefully work. Just doing a quick delete of the log files and see what happens. Okay, that looks good so far. Let's see, go back to the installation. First user, document root. Good. Okay, well, now it's time to try. Let's see what happens. A login screen. That's great. So admin at admin.com. Welcome. Yeah, welcome to you too. That is okay. Yeah, congrats to all of us. Okay, I can save this password in here. And well, now it's time to do the basic setup of the system. There is information on the Kimai website how to do that, but we managed to do the installation of the whole package, which includes setting up the Apache Web Server, the PHP, the Composer for the PHP, installation of Kimai, the MariaDB database, even though I downloaded accidentally an older version. And now we have Kimai up and running. If you want to complete the installation, there is kind of more to do with it in terms of please use an SSL certificate, which needs to go into the Apache configuration, but that is something that is easily available on Google. As you have noticed, this is not a high glossy YouTube video, but I hope this really helps you to being able to deploy Kimai, which I think is a great tool on a Windows host as well. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.